My name is Chénira Smith, and I work here at the Maryland Zoo as the education manager. And
Hi guys, my name is Anthony Snyder. I am one of our educators here at the zoo. We both got into education as kind of a zoo career, but prior to that, we both also worked with animals. So we both worked as zookeepers for varying amounts of time.
Do you mind if we jump right into some student questions? Because it's getting kind of late for our kids in Eastern Europe. And we know that you guys probably have very valuable time with all the things that you guys do. So one of our kids emailed, what is the most rewarding part of your job? And we'll start with Chénira and then take it over to Anthony.
I think the most rewarding part for me is when you have those aha bright light moments with people where you're really making that connection of the things that you're talking about. So they really feel that connection with the animal that you're either presenting to them or the topic that you're talking about. And you really see that light kind of spark and that interest spark within them. That is probably the most rewarding for me.
Yeah, I think that's very similar. My favorite things to teach about are topics and animals that people don't normally like. Things like bugs and spiders and snakes. And I think the most rewarding part of my job is when I'm teaching people about those animals, or even topics about those animals, things like venomous animals or something like that. And people walk away and they go, "Oh my God, that was so cool. I'm a lot less afraid than I was, before I came here." Or I thought they were so scary. And now, now it's, now I find that they're kind of cute. So definitely that.
That is so interesting. So we had one of our students, they wanted to know, how do you educate the public about conservation and animal welfare?
I'll start.
Yeah, you can start.
Sure. So the best way to do it is through empathy and understanding. So no one wants to say something that they don't care about. And there are some people that are just really hard to reach. And a lot of that is because they don't think whatever you're talking about pertains to them. So building empathy, building a relationship and understanding is kind of the key there. You want people to have a good time. You don't want to hit them with doom and gloom, and you don't want to say like everything is awful and the world's ending, because that's oftentimes not true. If you show people how amazing something is, even something that everyone thinks is amazing, like a giraffe, and you can really teach them about it, that will create a much better effect for conservation in the long run than showing someone a picture of or a video of giraffe being hunted or something like that.
Yeah, I don't think there's much I need to add. I think those are your two big things that you would want to focus on is empathy and understanding, because like Anthony said, once you have those two things, then you can build into those action items of things that people can really do to participate in conservation. So yeah, I think that's where you definitely would start.
Yeah.
Phenomenal answers. You make me want to work at a zoo. I mean, that's just so cool. So could you tell the kids about a typical day in the life of somebody who works in the zoos?
Wow, I guess the word typical was making us chuckle. There isn't really a typical day at a zoo. I mean, you have people who are very unpredictable, you have animals who are very unpredictable. So we're just working in a world of always being on the go and ready to be adaptable to whatever you're facing that day. We definitely have a work schedule and like things we plan to do, but how those things may go or what you might need to switch can, any given moment, it can completely change.
It's very rare that 2 days are the same, but I can give some insight into it. So as an educator, my day is a lot of I do a lot of like developing a plan for a program or a topic. And then I try to spend as much humanly time as possible as I can outside talking to people, because that's really what's going to make the difference for a lot of people. And that can make or break a guest experience coming to wherever it is you are. A positive impact can really make someone's day, even if for you it was just like, oh, I was just telling them about the squirrel. We had someone write in during an award thing recently because I talked to them about stink bugs. We don't have stink bugs at the zoo. I was just taking a picture of one, and we ended up doing a whole chat about it. So that's, getting out there is really important. And for when we were keepers, a typical days are actually a little bit more structured as a keeper, but when something goes wrong, everything shifts. So as a keeper, you have a very nice schedule. You come in, you feed, you get the yard ready, the animals go out, you do some training before they go out, then they're outside for the day so that the public can enjoy them and learn about them. And then then while they're doing that, you're cleaning and you're prepping diets, and they come in and then you work with them at the end of the day. But anything could change that, I would say. I very seldom had 2 days in a row that were the same.
Yeah, both as a keeper and working in education, my days were never the same. And like Anthony said, as a keeper, my days were definitely more structured. We came in, you check on all of your animals, make sure they're healthy, you get them out, you feed, you clean. As an education manager, I do a lot of planning on my end of things, trying to support our educators and things that they're creating for the public, and then getting to go out on programs and talk to people is something that I really enjoy. And so I get to do that here and there as a manager. It's a little different for me.
Wow, you guys have such an exciting day today. Again, just such a cool job. We have a question. I'm going to let Tiffany, she's in the Middle East. She had a really cool question. Go ahead and unmute to ask your question, friend.
Okay, so do you have animals that are going to extinction?
I'm not sure if you guys heard that, but do you guys ever work with animals who are endangered or about to go extinct, like rare animals?
Yeah. You
Okay, so it's one of my favorite things.
exciting.
Yeah, we do. We work with, so the Maryland Zoo in Baltimore is the largest breeding facility of Panamanian golden frogs in the world. And about 20 years ago, we sent staff from our zoo, the government in Panama, and a couple of other zoos in the country to Panama to collect these frogs from the wild. We collected them because of a fungus known as chytrid, which was killing them off. So we collected as many healthy frogs as we could. And we are now breeding them, and we are in the process of reintroducing them to Panama, where they are currently functionally extinct in the wild. They haven't been seen since 2000, I think it was 2009. So yeah, we do work with them. We work with endangered penguins and things like that. Now, it's important to note that most animals that are born in zoos will not go back into the wild, because there's a whole process to make sure that those animals have the best chance of survival. And normally animals born in zoos have a lot of very close contact with keepers, with humans, and that can be a pretty big detriment to them. So it's normally a whole chain of events before you get to the point where we're at now with the Panamanian.
That is intense. Like, I can't imagine working with like something so rare and fragile. We have a question from Attilio. Attilio is in Argentina. Attilio, you can unmute and you can ask your question. Go ahead, buddy.
Okay. Hi. I have a question. What are your favorite animals and why?
Oh, you go first.
Yeah, I can go first. So my just favorite animal, just off the bat, when people ask me that, is African elephants. And that's just from when I was a child. I just always loved elephants. I loved how big they are. I loved how their family groups functioned. But as a keeper, my favorite animal switched because I've never gotten to work with African elephants. I got to work with giraffes, a very large herd of giraffes, and they became very special to me and a special place in my heart. And it was more so gaining that understanding of the animal, like not having worked with them previously. It was just, they're just a large animal. I knew very little about them. So really seeing their different personalities and how their herds function and how it's a little different was really exciting for me. And they very quickly became the favorite animal that I've ever worked with.
And for me, I worked with giraffe for a long time as well, but they are not my favorite. for me, my favorite animal ever are bees. I love bees. I started probably 7 years ago now. I became a beekeeper, and I kept European honeybees, and they're really amazing. They're still one of my favorite animals to this day. But since then, I've done a lot more learning about native pollinators that are here in the Northeast United States. And bees are just so important. They're just so cool. So, you know, they're one of my favorite animals because you can find them anywhere. You can just go out to any flowering plant and sit down, and you can, you know, it's very meditative. You can just relax and watch them do their thing. So I think that's really cool. My favorite animal I've ever worked with are pigs. Pigs are super smart. They're, you know, they're very clear about what they like and don't like, and I appreciate that in kind of a working relationship.
That's so cool. That's like such an eclectic group you guys have as far as favorite animals. One of our kids, they wanted to know, how do you guys handle emergencies? Do you guys ever have animals escape, or what's the protocol for that?
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, so on the educational side, it's more so if we see something, we say something going through, like you said, the protocol that we have in place here at the Maryland Zoo. As a keeper, it also just depends on if it's your area, if it's not your area, how close you are to where it is, whether you need to get to somewhere that's safe or get other people to somewhere that's safe, or you need to be the person that's going in to close any gates that are potentially of access to them that could, you know, decrease the amount of space where they can get to. But we do have protocols here at the Maryland Zoo for that. All the staff that are at the zoo are trained for it. So it's not just keepers. Like I said, education staff, administrative staff, everyone who works here knows the drill and the protocol in place. So what we call it here, we have code alpha and code betas. But I mean, if you want to talk a little bit more in terms of it.
So I can tell you about, we had 1 year where we had a code alpha, an animal escape every single day. And that year was the year that we first got our peafowl. And we call an animal escape anytime an animal leaves its primary enclosure as part of the protocol. So we had this peacock who would just jump right out, and then we would call the code alpha and we walk over and we just jump back in. And we did that dance with him for like an entire summer. So, you know, we definitely have had animals escape. Really big, like what we would call like the kind of the scary ones, no. And the reason for that is because of protocols we have in place before animal escapes. When I was a keeper for African lions, as we work with them, you are not allowed to work with them alone. So whenever you are moving them or working with them, you have to have 2 people. For the 2 African lions that we had over 80 locks. And those 80 locks were split between 2 people. So I could only ever unlock half of one. My partner had to then check what I was doing, and I had to check what they were doing before they could unlock the second half. So, you know, zoos have those really important protocols in place, and it's just there to protect both us and the animals that we work with. So.
Yeah, and if you ever be a keeper and you watch them lock something, it will probably be the funniest thing you ever see, because they lock it, you pull on it as hard as you possibly can, they might walk away and come back and check it one more time. Yep. So it's kind of just ingrained in you that you always check your locks, you check other people's locks. So there is a lot of training that goes into security and protocols in place to make sure that we don't have those instances happen.
Yeah.
Can you guys talk a little bit on the work that you guys do in zoos to ensure that the animals aren't just in cages, they're in kind of like their natural habitat? Like, what kind of construction that goes into that, to building those surroundings?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite topics. I love exhibit design. So at the zoo, we try not to use the word cages unless we're referring to something old. And the reason is cages have bars, and that's generally a pretty negative outlook or in-look on an animal. So we tend to use the word habitats now for the most part. And so habitats in zoos are designed to give the animal as close of an accurate niche environment as we can, while also providing them with things that can help them do their own natural behavior. So for the giraffe that we have here at the Maryland Zoo, we don't feed them on the ground. We have hay racks that are on giant pulleys that go up into the air about 16 feet so that the animals walk over and eat from them just like they would from a tree. They have trees in their habitat for that same reason. And for things like, you know, if we're talking about something like the rhino habitat, on one side, there's no barrier on the rhino habitat. They could, in theory, swim across over to the antelope habitat, but there are hidden barriers underneath. What it gives them is, you know, it's a natural, rhinos aren't big swimmers, so it's a natural barrier for them. The same thing they would run into in the wild. If a rhino comes into a big river, they're not crossing it, and that's okay. They have their defined habitat. So we built something similar so that everything for them is as natural as possible. There's nothing on the other side that they're like, oh, I absolutely need that, because all their care is provided for them in the habitat that they have.
Yeah, and everything that we do, so we do welfare assessments, we do everything we look at, and everything that are part of the habitats that Anthony was talking about are constantly being evaluated, constantly being assessed based on species that are in there, based on individuals. So it's a very long and continuous process. So welfare is always the number one whenever you're visiting a zoo.
I've been in the zoo field since I was 15, so that's 15 years now. And if you guys are in middle school or high school, by the time, if you guys do end up going into the zoo field, which I encourage you to, zoos are pretty amazing entities. By the time you get into the field, it will be different. It will be better. It will be improved, and that's kind of the goal of all zoos, is to constantly be improving.
That is wonderful, wonderful stuff. So we're wrapping up here. We have one final student question. And guys, if you're interested in the Maryland Zoo and any of the offerings that they have, definitely check out marylandzoo.org, and we'll have the link in the video. We have Zoe, and Zoe is in South America. Zoe, go ahead and unmute, and you can ask our final question of the day.
Thank you. I wanted to ask what advice do you give to people who wants to work in a zoo?
What advice do we have for people that want to work in a zoo? Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I can go first. I think the biggest thing that I would say would be to get as much experience as you can in different areas with animals. So when I first started out, I was volunteering at my local animal hospital. And that was when I was kind of your age. I had literally just finished middle school and was finally old enough to start volunteering. And then I worked to get internships at different nature centers that were in my community. Again, that was volunteering, so I wasn't being paid, but they were giving me experience with animals. I was learning about husbandry and how to care for them. I got some introductions into training programs that they were doing there. And then I was fortunate enough to get an internship here at the Maryland Zoo to learn about more animals that were larger and that you were going to find in a zoo versus a nature center, or obviously at a domestic animal hospital. So I would definitely say as many experiences that you can get would be a great benefit to you. And I mean, what you're doing right now is honestly a really great step in just talking to people who are in the field, reaching out to some of those groups that are out there to hear about their different experiences and what opportunities are out there.
My piece of advice is to be flexible. Zoos are always changing. Welcome feedback, welcome change. You know, the world only gets better with change. You know, you only learn from it. And to, no matter what position you're in, if you want to become a keeper, if you want to become an educator, if you want to become an administrator in a zoo, if you want to become a vet, it's super important to learn how to talk to people, learn how to communicate with people and listen to what their experiences are. Because by doing that, when you give your feedback, when you let them know about the work that you're doing, and that the work that zoos are doing, you know, you're going to make a lasting impression. And that lasting impression is not only good for you, it's not only good for the zoo or aquarium that you're working at, but it's good for the environment. It's good for conservation, that people love animals. So.
Well, you guys are absolutely wonderful. You're definitely heroes for working with these animals and taking the time to come talk to the students. And we can't thank you enough. Before I end the meeting for all, I'm going to allow everyone to unmute. And can we say thank you to Anthony and Chénira for taking time out of their valuable day at the Maryland Zoo to come talk to you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.